sorcery. I wanna get stay on that sorcery thing for a minute.
Okay. So look, in the society we live in, they call it a Judeo-Christian society.
Hmm.
What that means is they are going to use the Judeo-Christian philosophical standards of influence in order for the people to respond in a particular way. This is what's going to be the driving force for the development of a society. As long as you control the creator gods and the ruler gods and how they react to creation, you can steer how creation manifests through the great egregore, which is the universal mind. It's like you hijacking it with the help of all of the other guys that don't know they're helping you, because you put circumstances in a path and you corral them like the farmer do the cows in order to get it from one part of the farm to the other, right? So they use what's called influence by having certain people speak on magic in a negative manner, right? And a lot of the types of magic are so vilified, and that's how they use the barrier of fear, which generates the common people's perception of what magic is and how it works, and that the devil is behind it. But you don't know that you the devil's agent because you're using his magic on yourself. That's
Hmm.
called the Amen spell. That's why all of the religions say Amen after they prayer, except the Buddhists.
Have you witnessed real sorcery?
Yeah, I know how to do it, but I don't do it.
Well, they say that sorcery is evil.
No, well, it can be used for evil.
Hmm.
It's like what Darth Vader told Luke Skywalker about the Force. He said, no, what I mean, Obi-Wan. He said, Luke, the Force is neither good nor bad. It is the intention of the Jedi who wields the Force that determines whether it's good or bad. You can use the magic for constructive or destructive purposes, or you can just use them to sustain something, right? The Force doesn't care about 3D reality. Only 3D beings care about 3D reality. The Force encompasses and permeates 3D, but it's not controlled by 3D. But you, as one of the gods, have sufficient enough control to contribute to the change. And that's why you have this mantra, be the change you want to see, right? People just think it sounds cute, but it's a scientific underpinning to that. You have to get the attention of the other powerful minds who may be distracted by finding the common thread because they all link up. And the
Okay.
universal mind is like a spider web.
All right. Once again, family, we're speaking with our brother Rod Hayes. Rod Hayes is going in and breaking down this science, man. I love it. Straight from the head, too. Notice, I want y'all to notice that. Straight from the head. No notes. No notes. He got it all right here. So,
Stay ready, don't get ready, son.
that's right. That's right. Can sorcery be explained through psychological phenomena?
Yes. So Carl Jung was a psychologist. They call him the occult psychologist because understanding the archetypes is what allows you to be able to read those occult and sorceress type energies. When you learn how to read archetypes, then naturally, if you study in psychology, you're going to run into Carl Jung, you're going to run into Sigmund Freud. Freud is the father of psychiatry. And if you tracing back in the United States, you're going to run into Dr. Benjamin Rush, who was the psychoanalyst who created the methodology of oppression. They call it the Willie Lynch syndrome. But he was a early sociologist and psychologist who was writing about it. When you get to France, you run into Gustave Le Bon, who was studying sociology and wrote the book The Crowd. In this book, it tells you how to control the masses by controlling who the antagonist is and who the protagonist is, and how to pit them against each other to optimize the effect. Right? Now, when you studying that and you understanding that the sorcery is in the movement of the people, it's in the manipulation of the most amount of people by controlling the narrative of the information they receive. Right? So the count, once you know how the sorcery work, your spiritual self builds you a natural defense system. But because we don't never study the magic, because we think it's evil, we never develop the proper defenses, what they call in the religious world, Christian world, putting on the full armor of God. You have to learn key aspects of the magic and how it worked to protect yourself. And blood magic is why we were not able to break our oppression to the foreign agents that came over here, because they use a blood magic ritual in the blood of Crispus Attucks, the first to die, because you need what's called first blood. So that's why they make it prominent in the history books that you know who the first person to die in the American Revolution. Right? Because by knowing that it's Crispus Attucks, now you know something else. You know whose blood they wrote the secondary constitution in, the one that's sitting in the George Washington Masonic Memorial. Now you know who blood it is, and now you know that they did it because they books say the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain. So when they put you under the spell and they made you believe that the blood of the righteous shall not be spilled in vain, and they constantly telling you that a righteous chief, he was in the position of right from the land, on the land, and he was operating in his proper capacity as a leader on the land, and they executing. So now they have to write the contract in his blood, a blood oath. We gonna honor it spiritually, and because we honoring it spiritually, it's gonna play out negatively socially. So then that's magic influencing politics, that's influencing the minds of the most people. Because you got to realize the most powerful or the most influential tools for teaching people in North America is religion and politics, right? And entertainment. Entertainment is more apt to reach them than religion and politics in this era. But it was an era where only the religious stuff was influential. And the religious stuff was brought specifically to enslave you mentally and spiritually. And the only way to enslave you mentally and spiritually is to first convince you to put yourself spiritually under a spell that'll keep you from protesting mentally. This was done in the 18th dynasty in the war between the Amin priests and the Aten priests. It's known legendary as the Priest Wars. The Amen spell makes the God being subjugate itself by saying Amen. He's confirming that he will not outshine any of the people around him. But they don't know that. They think that it means so be it. But they don't study Egyptology and hieroglyphics, so they'll never know what it means. So when you tell them what it means, because a preacher didn't tell them it mean that, they gonna think you lying and you making it up. Never knowing that the preacher is just as deceived, if not so more so, if he actually believe that BS he be teaching, than the people he's talking to. And if he's deceived, that's called the blind leading the blind. Now, it was a time where the ones who know concealed it in the church, the AME. This is why all of the brothers from the lodges was AME Christians, because they was finding out what's going on and they was passing the messages through the church. But when Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream became the prominent battle cry in the nonviolent philosophy of Mohandas K. Gandhi, right, became the battle call, they abandoned the secret traditions. Only a handful of them still know the purpose of the AME church was to pass tribal information in the presence of the enemy, using what the enemy gave us to control us as a way to be defiant to the enemy's control. So they became seduced, never knowing that after Elijah Muhammad had that historical meeting with Elijah Muhammad, that he discovered that he had integrated into a burning house. Right? When he tried to tell them, nobody didn't listen, because all they still remember is I had a dream. They don't remember that long before Columbus came, we were here. They don't hear that part. They don't hear him saying that Europe came over and they undergirded their white peasantry with an infrastructure. Financially speaking, this is. They had what they call farm college grants, right? They don't hear that Martin Luther King. They only still hear Have a Dream, which was the least of his greatest accomplishments or speeches. But we don't want to talk about that because we want to follow the victim mentality, because we've been putting ourselves in this spell so long. It's embarrassing to find out that
United States Incorporated is defunct. The Federal Reserve Central Banking System is defunct. The United States Treasury now own the banks. So who's running things now, and what is that going to look like in the very near future, now that the old system is done away with?
So eventually they're going to have to make the public know about the transfer of government, the transfer of banking. All this has to be known. They can't keep it a secret.
Okay.
Right? They have to come out and let us know. Okay. Donald Trump told the banks, he gave the banks an order to start what they call it, forgiving mortgages and credit card debts before the, I think, 19th. The inauguration is the 20th.
Right.
And you got a consequence for the ones that don't do it by that time, too, is in there, too.
So that would be, yeah. So public notice and implementation of that, what people are calling Nasara and Jasara, the debt jubilee, which, by the way, you know, we noticed that the Pope, who opened 5 doors or 5 portals, is calling those 5 portals or 5 doors jubilee doors.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very telling.
Yeah, that's for the 5 P's. It's politics. I forgot what they all are, but it's they got those 5 P's of government, right? And they use that 5 pillars. It stands for 5 pillars. The 5 pillars is normally in front of one of the buildings, the state building. Okay. The 5 pillars, because they use what they call 5 pillars of government.
Here's one. I don't know if this is right. The 5 P's of the SDG. Now that might not be it, but they call it People, Planet, Prosperity, Peace, and Partnership.
Yeah, that's the cover story. But they really use in the 9 areas of people, activity, and health.
Okay.
Right. And the 9 is also a P.
Right. The number 9. Okay. So somebody asked, does that include student loans too that have to be eliminated?
Yeah, all of those got to go because nobody's supposed to have to pay to get an education.
Okay.
That was already fraud to begin with. You gotta remember the universities and the HBCUs and the Ivy Leagues are all owned by the Rockefellers.
Mm.
It was the Rockefellers' educational um, format that they was using, and they was using it also to enslave the people financially. That's what the whole student loans went from a class to be a doctor in the '60s. You probably was out about $8,000 to go to school to be a doctor in the '60s. Now you're gonna be out of probably close to $1 million.
Yeah, I was about to say several hundred thousands. I worked in a medical school, and them kids came out with $300,000, $400,000 debt. Medical school. That's not even including internship, residency,
Mm-hmm.
and other programs. You know, if you wanted to practice certain parts of certain different
Specialty, yep, specialty
specialties. Yes.
training, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they know what they're doing because it's called the passage at $100,000. In order to get past that, you have to sacrifice so much it probably drive you crazy and make you do something to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But the people that can endure through the struggle normally reap the benefits of becoming a doctor and being able to pay that loan back and live pretty comfortable.
Mm.
But the average doctor is a C student. You gotta remember that.
You're right.
And you got doctors that graduate with D's, barely making it.
I
You
remember seeing.
gotta remember that.
I remember saying, "Oh, I would never want you to work on me," you know, to myself when I would look at their grades.
Mm-hmm. And then that's the doctors that they can get to do the nefarious work for the medical pharmaceutical companies. They the ones come in and give them all of their free medication to get clients hooked on prescription pain pills and stuff. They the ones that facilitate that,
Mm.
right? So you got other countries, Nigeria, you can go to school to be a doctor for free. Cuba, right? Why it cost so much over here? What's wrong over here?
Not only does it cost a lot of money, Chief, to get a medical degree, but the medical schools spend a whole lot of money trying to convince melanated people to go to doctors. When I tell you a lot of money, they give people who specialize in how they say closing the gap of health disparities millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because it's a problem with melanated people. You know, that most of us don't like doctors, we don't like hospitals. So they have campaigns to try to entice us to get medical attention. And people think that's a good thing, not remembering what the medical community did to us.
We're still doing.
Still doing.
But you got to remember too that outreach to our community that didn't come from the general practitioners of medicine. That came straight from the Margaret Sanger School of Eugenics.
Okay. Okay.
It's the eugenics model to get us to do abortions because we used to wouldn't do an abortion no matter what.
Right. Right.
They've normalized it now.
Yeah, they have. They have.
Right. And so the outreach to get us to use their system is how they got us into this Tuskegee experiment.
Yes.
All that's carryover from Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
You got to remember the STD clinics is also an extension of Planned Parenthood.
Mm.
Right? In the early prenatal care that's done by the state, all that's Planned Parenthood.
Mm.
That was their model to get into every aspect of medicine to control how they poison us pretty much.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. That's the same model, same marching orders.
Mm.
We didn't ever trust them people.
We sure didn't. Because in the day, go ahead.
Yeah, and we had our own healers, so well.
I was just about to say that.
we needed to go there.
Yeah.
They made us think that our healers was quacks and their healers was the real deal.
Mm.
That's their uniform system in the white coat syndrome.
Okay.
Right? You gotta remember, uniform commercial code. Everything must be uniform in order to appear to be legitimate.
Okay.
right? The
Right.
symbol of the doctor in the white coat is the symbol of authority that you're supposed to blindly follow. It got a name for it in psychology, and they call it the white coat syndrome. When you got people, if the doctor tell it to them, he could be 100% lying, and they gonna 100% believe him
That's true.
because he got that white coat on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that comes straight out of Machiavelli. To put people in uniforms so that they can seem more important than other people.
Mm.
And then you put medals and trinkets on their jacket to make them superior among the ones that wear uniforms.
Mm-hmm. So you're exposing a lot of these things, along with blood conjure wars and all this magic that they have used to cast spells on us. What's next? Now that you expose all this, what happens next? What are we supposed to do with this information?
Well, one thing is once you know that there's a spell and how it works and that you was a target of it, you take away the power of it by removing the secrecy.
Okay.
So even the people that's diehard Christians that heard the message, don't try to convince them.
Okay.
Because they blood gonna talk to them over time and wake them up. Every time they get ready to do one of those Eucharist communion rituals of eating their God and drinking his blood, they'll realize that that's a simulated cannibal ritual used to subdue the minds of the people. You can't unhear it. You know it now.
That's one of the things that woke me up. I was literally taking communion one day, and I just woke up like in the middle of taking communion. I was like, do you hear yourself saying, I will take the blood of Christ and I'm eating the body of Christ? But if anybody else does that, they will call him a cannibal. They will call him, an idol worshiper. And I'm not saying this to offend anybody. I'm saying this is what happened to me when I said, you know what? Something about this just doesn't sit well in my spirit.